Going live.
Hi everyone, my name
One
is Dr.
sec. No, not yet. I'll tell you.
It's live.
It's live?
Mhm.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Sneha Lu. I'm a palliative physician. I'm the founder of Ori Kalankini. Ori Kalankini is an organization that's changing narratives around menstruation and sexuality in India using art, theatre, and dialogue. This series is called Leaning into the Network series, where we bring people from different parts of our network to meet each other, to talk about their work, the concepts they hold dear, and their specific relief efforts they're taking up during COVID-19. Today, I'm super happy to introduce you to Anisha. Anisha is an actor and a singer. Hi, Anisha.
Hi, Sneha.
She's here to talk about her work. That's how I found her. So the work is called No Turning Back, and also her paper was on feminism and Indian theatre. So I'm looking forward to this conversation with you, Anisha.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to.
Thank you. Just letting people know that we are live on Facebook. So if you have questions, please type them in the comment section of this live stream, and last 15 minutes we'll take that up. So meanwhile, Anisha, we ask everyone the same first question.
Mhm.
When were you made aware of your gender, and how did the structure of your family support it or not?
Okay, interesting question actually. I think that I was made aware of my gender pretty early on. Um, so I have an older brother who is 6 years older than I am, and there was always a difference between because he is male, he's allowed to do certain things and learn certain things and be a certain way. And you, as a girl, are protected and you're expected to do this and you're expected to be a certain way. I think the first time now that you ask me, and when I'm able to recollect, I remember being taught when I was 5 or 6 about how I should carry myself or how I should be or how I should conduct myself in social surroundings, especially in the way that you sit.
Hmm.
Um, like, oh, you're wearing a frock. Okay, so then you close your legs and you sit a certain way. And that because you're a girl, you speak a certain way, or you don't whistle, or you don't be too loud, or you don't laugh too loudly. That was also something I remember is that girls don't laugh so loudly, or girls don't be loud, you know. Um, and I think that became more and more prominent in my college days because like any other young adult, I would want to go out and party with my friends and just be free and have a life of my own. But the kind of freedom that my brother was granted was very different from the kind of freedom I received, uh, because he was male, and because there wasn't this fear for him. He could be out and about till really late at night. But because I'm a woman, because I'm a girl and a young girl, uh, in a country like India, I couldn't be out for too long or too late or with a certain kind of crowd. So I remember, especially in my college days, I would have to do all sorts of things to get out of my friends. Uh, really fight to go out for a party or have a sleepover. Um, so yeah, but I think the good thing is that my mom has always been a working mom, um, highly educated. She always managed to carry her alongside her home duties. So she was very particular about the fact that I went to a good school, I went to a good college, I got a degree, I got a postgrad degree, and then I had a career of my own. So there was quite that binary. Um, so yeah, I think that I was supported in that sense, in that way, but also a lot of cultural norms and a lot of societal norms played into my upbringing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. This sit properly and laugh, don't laugh loudly has been such a common theme across everyone who shared that. Like we have one interview with Adwiti Emmy, and her
Mm-hmm.
project is called Sit Properly, which was
Oh
inspired
wow.
by being instructed to sit properly in a bus. by a random person.
I remember I used to hang out a lot with my neighbors, and then everyone like kept their doors open, and you could just walk on the road and see what everyone was up to. And I would always be told that when you're in a neighbor's house, you have to sit this way, especially if you're wearing a frock, and don't laugh too loudly. Girls can't be that loud. So yeah, it's really interesting. She named her work that.
Yeah, she was like in a public bus. Somebody told me I'm wearing jeans. Like probably she was wearing salwar kameez. So she's wearing salwar kameez, like no legs show, nothing. But she was sitting in a way she liked, and then that was not palatable to the person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So asking you the next question about your own work. I found you on a friend's Facebook timeline because of your work. It's called No Turning Back, and it's brilliant. It's a monologue, and it like only towards the middle of it you start it starts the story starts becoming apparent. Can you talk a little bit about it? What is it about? Yeah.
Sure. So No Turning Back is a monologue where you see a female protagonist who talks about her journey with a relationship she just quit. Mostly a marriage. When I was writing it, I had a marriage in mind. And I had an abusive relationship in mind. So in the discourse of her monologue, she's talking about everything that she put herself through or she went through in this relationship and how she pulled herself out of it. So what's essentially happening in this monologue is she's having a conversation with a very close friend over lunch, and the friend possibly brings up a question about why she hasn't given this said person, her husband or her partner, a second chance, or why she didn't choose to work on this relationship, because working on a relationship, especially as a woman, and compromising and being self-sacrificing is just so important in so many cultures. um, she then decides to talk about what she went through and where she currently is in her life. um, so if you really watch the monologue, she starts talking about her present life, where she has pulled herself out of this abusive relationship. She has a job of her own. She's built a better life for herself. And through the whole monologue, she also brings out the dynamic of the abusive relationship. And how this came about was through a lot of conversations with my friends. It was really
Anisha, I have an
strange.
idea.
Yeah.
It came just now. If you want, you can share screen and play the monologue, like play the video. You
Oh,
think
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great. Yes. Let me just pull it up.
We'll watch it. Yeah.
Yes, that's a great idea. Um, okay. I'll let you know when it's up and playing.
Yeah.
Okay. Just going to share my screen. Mm-hmm. You can see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Super.
Yeah.
Okay. What status now? I mean, I've worked really hard to move on. It's been a year and a half now, and I know for a fact that I'm never going back. And I mean, if you're here to have this conversation with me, then please, you can leave too. Okay. So I did what I did in my defense. Because had I not, I wouldn't be here right now. And for how long do you want me to suck it up? Really, it had to stop someday, right? And people turn around and ask me, if you loved him, dude, how could you do that? I mean, I left my career here in Bombay and I moved back here so we could give it a shot and make it work. So do you think I loved him? I mean, has anyone asked him if he loved me after everything he put me through? There's just so much I haven't told you because it's difficult and some days I just don't know how to confront those feelings. Did I ever mention how callously he would call me a slut? This one time he grabbed me by my hair and he dragged me across the floor. And he would call me up at work and threaten me because he was convinced that I was cheating on him. It's like he made up these scenarios in his head, It's really, really crazy. And that night when I came home to you, he got home really late and he was reeking of alcohol. And he was so drunk he couldn't find his wallet, so he was convinced that I stole it. And he was furious and he was throwing things around, and then he just grabbed me by my neck. And I couldn't breathe, and I was just trying to grab onto something, and that's when I got hold of that pen and I went for it. And then I just ran. I ran down the stairs and I was terrified and I could hear him screaming and I wanted to run back and save him, but I knew if I went back, he would kill me. He really would. So I came running to you, and on my way there, all I could think of was, I hope he doesn't call the fucking cops because I don't want to spend the rest of my life in the jail for something he made me do. So yeah. But it's fine. I mean, I'm much better now. I have a place of my own, and work is great. Some days are difficult. Some days I really miss him, and I really miss the person he was before all this happened. And it gets lonely, but I can't go back. I can't do that. And it's fine. It's fine. I don't care if Ma doesn't get it. I don't care if after all this you don't agree with me. And I don't care if he's working on himself and he's a changed man. I mean, after everything he put me through. I just feel like if he walks through that door right now, I would grab that fucking pen and just stab his other eye. That's what I'd do. So, what's done is done. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the monologue.
Yeah, I mean, it deserves this silence and, much more. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, just give me a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You were saying that you spoke to many people before writing this.
Yeah, so it was really strange, but it was, I think, around June, July last year that I had moved to Bombay to start working with the Jeff Goldberg studio. And I had started to notice how common this was among my friends. A lot of my friends had been in abusive relationships, a lot of them in emotionally abusive relationships, and they had not recognized those signs until much later. And I think that two of the relationships I saw myself in were emotionally abusive, and the second one would have translated to physical abuse had I stayed. Um, but what impacted me most was someone I just made friends with, and she had pulled herself out of a 4 year long physically and sexually abusive relationship. And I could still see the trauma that she was dealing with. It had only been a few months that she had pulled herself out of that house and got herself her own place and was trying to get back on her feet. And this woman is a highly successful woman, fully independent, an incredible person who had just been with this man for 4 years. And the details of what he had done to her were close to a nightmare in the 4 years of them being together. Mm. And I feel like that really kind of broke the bubble for me because I thought that these things only happen to certain people, that these things only happen to a certain class. This is a common dynamic, I think. When you talk to your maids and you hear of them having alcoholic, abusive husbands, you realize it's a norm that is accepted. Also, because we are a patriarchal society and women are made to believe that these are their roles and this is what they need to put up with. Or you think that this only happens to women who are married to men in positions of power who have complete control over them. But no, this is happening everywhere. This is happening to my friends. Um, and this is happening to, again, urban women who are well educated, financially independent, successful at what they're doing, who are confident, who don't need men to give them any kind of definition or any kind of security, would find themselves in these relationships. Um, and that for me was such an eye opener. Um, and I spoke about these things where he's slut shaming her and he's calling her names and he's putting her down,
Yeah.
because all these things were happening. They were really happening. And it was impacting the said person and it was impacting them in a terrible way. Um, and actually, to two or three of my friends who had pulled themselves out of physically abusive relationships, when they left, they came out of this relationship losing all sense of themselves. Like they just didn't know who they were anymore. Because this same person who loved and adored you in the beginning was putting you down every way possible. uh, by calling you a slut, by thrashing you, by forcing you into intercourse when you didn't want it, by isolating you, by controlling your finances. And this is a common dynamic that when women walk out of these relationships, they have endured so much trauma, they don't know who they are anymore. And what I hated was that everyone would ask them, the first time he raised his hand on you, why didn't you walk out? Or why didn't you call the cops? And the fact is that you should be asking people, why are men doing this and still getting away with it? And why aren't we a better environment or a safer environment for women? Right? And honestly, if it was that easy, women would have walked out the first time. But they're bound by family, they're bound by finances, they're bound by kids, they're bound by their love for this partner. So I thought it was really important to address this because I think the only thing that would save women from getting into these messy relationships is being aware of who these people are. How do I spot the red flags? How do I know that this man is potentially unsafe for me? Um, because I think we still live in a society and an environment where women have to be married off and women have to compromise and women have to give up on something to make a marriage work or make a relationship work, even at the cost of their own lives. And I thought that that was unacceptable. So in this monologue, I wanted to make sure that, in spite of the fact that she missed him, which he talks about, in spite of the fact that she does still love him or miss
Yeah.
the person he used to be, she has moved on and that there's no turning back. That's where the title came from.
Right. That is what I found very interesting, because like we are not black and white people, right? But so you still, I mean, people still miss the person they were, like the protagonist said, and they think about them, but they also would stab the other eye because of
Yeah.
everything they put through, or they were put through. Yeah,
And
and
that's
also
what's difficult. Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and to be living with that, along with the social pressure and questioning around, okay, why didn't you make it work, or why didn't you call the cops? Both the
Yeah.
questions are directed at the woman, or in this
Exactly.
case, the survivor. Even if it's a
Yeah.
quick relationship, um, it is like physical abuse is pretty common, and then again the survivors ask the same two questions. um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. What would you say are the red flags? Because I know the research you have done as a background, also from, apart from stories, even psychologically, you could you talk about the red flags which we should keep in mind? Um,
Sure. So when I was looking into the psychology of it and why people do what they do, of course, a lot of these men, maybe a few women, tend to have, um, I don't know if it's a problem, if it's a personality trait or whatever it is, but they're unable to be emotionally available to their said partner.
mm,
It may have been childhood trauma, childhood neglect. They live with a deep sense of abandonment. And because they're subconscious patterns, they form a personality around it. And what seems alluring and attractive to them initially can switch in like a matter of seconds and can switch back again in a matter of seconds or minutes. Um, the red flags in terms of uh, this person or this personality, um, one, if you look at it, um, a lot of these men tend to be overly enthusiastically charming, incredibly charming men. And that for us is hard to figure out, of course. When you meet someone, you don't know if they're genuinely nice, if they're genuinely charming, or if they have an ulterior motive behind what it is they're trying to do. But if you look into a lot of psychology, there are actually studies on how charming men um, show signs of domestic violence. There was a research conducted where a lot of survivors of domestic violence were interviewed, and this was a common trait. A lot of these men were extremely charming, had had a lot of charisma, were easily believable, and people were easily drawn to them. That is tough. But the second biggest red flag to look out for is someone trying to rush you into any kind of commitment. Maybe you've only known this person for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they're already saying things like, "Oh my God, I love you, and you're the one, and I really want to do this with you." Or maybe they're trying to rush you into living together, or they're rushing you into marriage. So any kind of rush is always a bad sign. Uh, the sign of any healthy relationship is that you respect a person's boundary, which a lot of these men are incapable of doing.
mm,
Um, Third thing are signs of control. What may seem amazing in the beginning, which is someone constantly keeping a tab on you, someone asking you what you're doing, how you're feeling, where you um, are actually early signs of control. They want to get so much into your space and into what you're doing, and they want to have control over who you see, who you meet, what you do, how much time you spend at work. That you just you start feeling really suffocated. You start feeling like, why is this person trying to take control of things? So those are the three biggest signs, I would say.
Yeah.
Anything highly obsessive is never good in the beginning. Anyone admiring you way too much, anyone trying to rush you into certain things or creating these idealistic things, anything obsessive is never good. So I would say really look out for those 3, 4 signs when you meet someone.
Yeah, and the third one is, in the subcontinent, it's almost like, yeah, men do that. Men check on you. Men ask when are you coming back, or what you're doing and whom you spend time at work. So drawing a line can be very difficult. And when you describe that you might be feeling suffocated, you might feel like, they're keeping
Controlled.
tab on you. And this reaction might not even come out of majority of women or survivors, because that takes awareness of space around oneself to be able to detect suffocation.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think, I don't know, at least in our country, unfortunately, men are just allowed to do these things. You're allowed to tell your wife whether or not she can work, whether or not she
Yeah.
can dress a certain way or have a friend circle. Um, but I hope that things are changing for the better, and there are educated women out there who are trying to change things, um, and are trying to create awareness. But again, you also find yourself back in this dynamic, and that is potentially dangerous. You know.
Yeah, and I think one is that I'm not like the need for love sometimes, or need for companionship sometimes, makes us oversee these traits, and we know that something's wrong, but
Yeah.
we gaslight ourselves into believing that, oh no, I'm only overthinking it. Like, I've done that. So,
That's so true. That's another thing a lot of my friends told me, is that I saw these warning signs in the beginning, but I would, I would put it away and I would think, oh, I'm just overthinking this, or no, he's actually a nice guy, and this, I'm maybe just, reading into this too much. And that's also the thing with abusers, is that they have a whole cycle, and they have these two, faces they can manage and control you with. So yeah.
mm, yeah, and the same person is coming back with adulation. When we were talking also, you said the cycle is okay, this abuse, and then again overcompensation with,
Yeah.
again, time, attention, adoration, and then yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, abusers have that cycle. And again, the first phase is the love bombing, which you will see a lot of when they've just started dating you, when you've just met them. And the idea behind love bombing is it's excessive affection, it's excessive gifts, and just putting you on this pedestal, right? And then there's that phase where everything is normal, just like any other relationship. And then phase 3 is the actual abuse. Um, and emotional abuse can be a lot more dangerous sometimes, because people can be in this relationship for years and not realize it's emotional abuse. So you are going through the cycle of abuse. Physically, of course, it can be hitting, it can be throwing things at you, trying to physically harm you in any way, or even threaten you, uh, threaten to kill you, threaten to harm your family or your friends. It can be sexual abuse, where they're forcing you into intercourse when you don't want it. Sometimes even phone sex. Sometimes physically, where they're just trying to assault you. Um, and after that is the fourth phase, where uh, you're trying to walk out of the relationship, you're trying to leave, you're trying to hold them accountable, and they go through the apology phase, which sometimes is mixed with the love bombing again, where they're excessively sorry, where they're buying you expensive gifts, where they're promising to change. They're saying that I'm going to work on myself, I'm going to change. Um, but then they return to the same dynamic, you know. And the show Big Little Lies brings that out really well. It is about 3 women who see themselves in these situations, and Nicole Kidman's husband is physically and sexually abusive. And after every cycle of abuse, you see him buy her really expensive gifts. Sometimes it's a car, sometimes it's a diamond necklace. Um, so yeah, that's what keeps a person trapped in this cycle, this hope of he will change or he will do better.
Even like I would just like to add one more thing: breaking things or hurting oneself. Because I know of this one person who would. I was not in a relationship with them, but uh, they were my friend, but they were in relationship with someone else, and I knew this, uh, you know, this part of them only when they were in a relationship with someone else. That they
Okay.
would hurt themselves, like hit themselves somewhere, because they didn't know how to regulate their emotions, and that they didn't want to hurt their partner. I see
Mm-hmm.
that as an abusive relationship, uh, one that
Absolutely.
threatening the partner in a way, making them scared and making them walk on eggshells. And second, it can turn into abuse directed at them because
Mm-hmm.
no, like end of the day, you
Yeah.
don't know how to regulate emotions.
Yeah. And what these abusive partners tend to do is they tend to blame their partner. Um,
You made
and
me do
this
it.
is,
Make me
yeah,
angry.
you made me do it, especially with physically abusive partners. Because you got me angry and because you said that, I had to hit you.
Yeah.
And look at what you made me do. So then, the other codependent, I hate the word victim, but whoever is enduring all this suffering and pain tend to take this onto themselves and say, oh my God, that's true. Maybe had I not said this or had I not done this, I would not have received that in the first place. So that is, like you said, another way of partners gaslighting their victim and keeping them trapped. You know, you just put the blame on them, and they take it onto themselves.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Anisha. Like, you know, thank you for making a work like this, and thank you for talking about it because we really need to hear it. Like you said, no, we don't. Um, People don't talk about it, and we think that we won't be prey to this. It's really a trap. You never know
Never
who
know
the
at
person
all.
turn out to be, and yeah.
Yeah.
See, I've seen how beautifully your education has translated into your work. Like your the paper was on feminism and Indian theater, and you've drawn from it. So, can you talk about what the paper was about, and yeah, what did you find out when you were writing it?
Sure. So this is a paper I did during second year of my college. I was studying in Mount Carmel and I was pursuing a BA. And we had a whole curriculum on Indian art and learning about different forms of Indian art and critiquing different forms of Indian art. And at the end of this curriculum, we had to put in a dissertation. And I was already doing a lot of theater in college. Um, and that's when I think I had started to see myself as a feminist. I started to identify as someone who felt strongly for like women and women rights. Um, so I just thought about the kind of impact that this could have had on Indian theater. Also because I think during one of our classes we spoke about how a lot of protagonists, a lot of work is largely male oriented, largely male dominated. So how did women essentially find their place in Indian theater? So I was really keen to kind of look into this. And I started reading about it. And my paper essentially focuses on post-independent India and
Hmm.
theater in post-independent India and how women found their voice at that point. Essentially, a lot of theater initially, even then, males would play female roles.
Hmm.
So even if they were female characters, the performers were essentially male. Or in King's Courts, the ones who played female roles were like sex workers, prostitutes, or what they would call the Devadasi,
Hmm.
right? So women weren't given a platform until much later, much later. Um, and actually, feminist theater in India began as an intersection between experimental theater and this need for activism, female activism,
Hmm.
right? So one of the first few instances is street theater, and how street plays and street theater became a medium um, where women were able to talk about their issues. And of course, even post-independent India, women had a lot of societal roles, a lot of societal problems that they were dealing with. Gender inequality. Back then, it was a lot of dowry, the practice of sati. The need to abolish sati at that point was very strong. So a lot of work that you see in like 1960s, 1970s India talks about this need to do away with uh, this practice of sati. And of course, also female education was one thing that came up. So it's essentially the first part of my work talks about how street theater became such a massive tool in educating the masses, in becoming a platform for women. For those who are not familiar with street plays or street theater is a medium through which you go from house to house. Happens actually a lot in rural India, where you want to educate people about what's happening, what needs to change. So you have a set of actors who go in, who perform a piece on something that's socially relevant. It can be anything. Um, so if I want to talk about, say, something like dowry and the effects it can have on the bride and her family, then I would make a play around dowry. I would have a male protagonist, a female protagonist. I would enact a small scene, or I would enact a whole story that would show the repercussions of dowry, and then sit down and have this discussion with the community. Right? It also it also became interesting because how many people are really keen to sit down and talk to you one on one? What is more impactful is if I gather together a few people, if I put up an impactful play, and if I'm able to kind of create that impact with people, then I'm able to address it uh, so much more effectively. So that's precisely how Indian theatre started to tackle women issues, and women start to see themselves in the forefront. One of the first few street plays was this play called Aurat, which is very well known for its time. And I'll tell you a little more about that. It was by the Jan Natyam Manch. It was one of the first few Indian theatre groups that came together post independence, and they addressed this idea of domestic violence and dowry through Aurat, which was in 1979. Um, and it actually became one of their best works. They started off as street theater and then translated into different mediums, and it was quite impactful. Um, so yeah, theater essentially became a tool for women rights and just spreading awareness. So that's what we discuss in the first half of my paper, and yeah, then we move on to discuss authors and how women found themselves in different roles in Indian theater.
Who are your favorite feminist artists or directors or script writers? Who, if you have any favorites, only so that I can look them up and study more.
Sure. That's pretty tough. Also because I'll tell you why. Like, even though it's 2020, I feel like for women to find their place anywhere is such a task because we are still a male-dominated world. And I feel like any woman who's trying to carve her path in any way, in any medium, is essentially carving the path for so many other women. They're all being feminists. They're all being strong female leads. But I remember in college, I was introduced to Usha Ganguly. She wrote a really impactful piece. She is an author and actor from Calcutta. She wrote a piece that addressed this idea of the need for female children. Because we still face that taboo in our society. She brought out the dilemma of the mother in that place so well. So I remember her being extremely extremely impactful when I was studying theatre. Her work was pretty amazing. Otherwise, I would say any early female artist, particularly because I started my journey with theatre in Bangalore. Arundhati Nag is the founder of Rangashankara.
Yeah.
Rangashankara is the first fully equipped theatre here in Bangalore. It's all about theatre. It's all about actors. It brought together a community of actors. So I think for that to have come from a person like Arundhati Nag was quite a revolution, because you talk to any actor anywhere in India, and if you talk about Bangalore theatre, everyone knows Rangashankara. So she really brought that to the forefront. Yeah, and I just think that any woman in this field, like literally anyone who believes in theatre as a medium, who has carved her path, like Shabana Azmi, um, and so many others have contributed, yeah, and continue to contribute. I also was a part of a female-centric play in February at the Jeff Goldberg studio, which is called The Three Sisters by Anton Chekhov. Um, and it was three incredible actresses just starting off on their acting journey, who were being, three really strong female protagonists. So yeah, I would say that I find my inspiration through all of these women.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
I found this very interesting, the expression you used, that anyone, you will call them as feminists because you have to constantly keep carving your path in whichever field you go, because you embody, because you're in a female body. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, or the society views you like that. Yeah, so I think we're at the end of questions from my side.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add before going?
I just think what I would really want to see as a performer myself, as a consumer of the arts myself, is to have women in far more stronger roles. I don't just want her to be a damsel in distress anymore. I don't just want her to be a substitute to this male protagonist anymore. So the hope is really that we encourage pieces and works of art where women are in the forefront. And thankfully, I feel like that is happening. But honestly, like the need for women to be in positions of power, like be a CEO, be a lawyer, um, be a teacher, be a rebel, like, but just express who you are and truly express it, and powerfully so. I think that there's a need to really encourage that. And there's a need to bring up our daughters so their self their their self or their identity isn't defined by a man, but just themselves and what they do. So yeah, my hope for any kind of art is that we see stronger women characters.
Thank you. And already started setting example by not only featuring in strong art, but making your own pieces which are very strong. And yeah, thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
It was so much fun talking to you. Thank you, Anisha.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too.
Hey,
Thank you that you're addressing all of this. It's so important.
yeah, just 1 minute. I have to check the comment section on Facebook if they have more questions. So I'm going to go off video and check.
Sure.
We have no questions even there, so I think people can always write to you. I'll put your email there below in the description box, or you can come and comment on the page later, and so they know that you're also part of the page, right? I've seen you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am on.
So if you write your email ID, then they can even add you on Facebook, or I don't know, however they want, and you're comfortable being contacted. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this talk, and thank you for the amazing work you're doing. Yeah, and I hope more people are able to access your work.
Thank you so much. Oh, I wanted to even add about the theater workshops you're conducting, because I
Yeah,
think it's very important for people to learn from actors who are making such work. So could you share about that? How can people
sure.
join that?
Sure. So I just founded my own theater company. It's called Drama Lama India. And what I wish to do through that is make theater education far more accessible, and far more fun and individualistic. So what I'm doing right now is I am doing online workshops, mostly for children. I just completed a workshop with teenagers between 12 to 16, and now I'm working with young kids between 7 to 12. So yeah, what you can do is follow us on Instagram. It's called Drama Lama India, and just stay updated with our workshops and have your kids enroll. And when we do have adult workshops, definitely sign up for it. Um, Theater is a great medium for self-expression and self-exploration, and that's exactly what I want to do through these workshops. So yeah, sign up and do some theater.
Yay. All right. Thank you, Anisha. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much.
So we go off Facebook now.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a second.